Hi everybody, welcome to GameGorgon Early Access. My name is Krug. Today we're here to talk to you about, sorry, hold on. I think I wrote on the back of this pillow. Sorry, we're still in the middle of setting up, but just so that you guys have like an idea of what's coming we're gonna be talking to you about early access so that you guys can kind of get an idea of what early access is like for people, right? We haven't implemented Indigo yet.
Hey everyone, welcome to GameGorgon. My name's Indigo.
And I'm Krug.
And today we're going to be talking about early access, what it is, and really should it exist.
As it applies to the gaming industry, early access is not a terribly uncommon practice, but maybe if some of you aren't familiar with it.
And more common as the day goes by.
Yeah, more common as the days go on. If some of you aren't familiar with it, one, you are a lucky person, and two, here's what it is. Early access is a practice by which developers release games to the public either for free or at a cost that aren't done, that they have deemed, either themselves or their publishers have deemed as not yet complete.
Now, early access is becoming very, very popular, especially amongst indie developers, because it allows them to kind of get a small amount of cash flow, or allows them to not have to pay QCers, because now people are going to come in, join their game, and play it, and kind of QC their game for them. So it's kind of like a money-saving or money-gaining, system.
And in some cases, it's a lot of money. It's not even a small amount of income. In some cases, it's a landfall, like tons of money.
Yeah, I mean, and there are kind of like different levels to it, because there's like Steam Early Access, but then there are stuff like I've done, which like with Crowfall, where I've kickstarted a game and I've given them money to get extremely early access, like alpha status, and play for what I know is going to be a year or two of alpha and beta process. But then like with Steam, it's just like you're expected, this is a game that's close or sort of close.
Yeah, and there isn't really a guideline, right? Like it's just sort of the developer releases when they release. And there are some games that players say, why isn't this done to you? Can you explain why it's in early access? Because I can't as a player.
Yeah.
And that happens, I think, a lot of times. And then there's a lot of other situations, but I think there's one more positive side of early access games, and that is the players get to contribute.
Yes.
So from the developer's perspective, a player can QC or do QC-like functions, so maybe you don't have to pay as many QC people, or if you're brave, pay none, but I don't recommend that. But the players also get a benefit from that, because they get to kind of make, maybe not decisions on how the game progresses or how it evolves as it's being developed, but they definitely at least have the opportunity to have an influence on that process.
Sure.
If one player has a super good idea that a ton of other players agree with, or if a ton of players make the same observation of why something isn't working, the developers can then focus on that and try and fix that specifically, whereas maybe they wouldn't have noticed that if they hadn't gotten the feedback from a ton of other people. So cost saving for the developers, cost savings for the players sometimes, actually, because sometimes early access games come out at a discount because developers recognize this isn't a full product. You, by helping us do this and putting up with the half-baked, can just have it for $20 instead of $30 or whatever the case may be. And then obviously the community gets a chance to kind of dictate the game. There's a lot of positives to this, right? And I think in a perfect world, every game would release this way. Do you want, in a perfect world, one where everything is happy and roses, you'd always release your game early, you'd always get a set of people who are interested in pre-release builds of things, the technical people that love to try to break stuff, and then they would play it and break it, talk to the developers about it, the developers would fix it, and release it to the masses, and it would be slightly more expensive for the masses who didn't put up with and it would be flawless, but we don't live in a perfect world, do we?
Not only do we not live in a perfect world, but there's no accountability to actually leaving early access. Some of the charts that you actually found were percentage of actual games that were in early access that have not left early access. And
you have to keep note, and we're going to show these charts, but you have to keep note that these are pretty old.
Yes, this is from 2014.
They're 2014, but it does show a definite trend of early access games staying that way, right? Yeah, you can go to cold feet, and developers are nervous about releasing because they don't want to disappoint their surprisingly large audience. But then you have the guys that are like, well, I released this in early access and I made $10 million. Let me just bounce. Like, I have $10 million now. And they can do that because there's no accountability there. Like, when you buy an early access title, you can be promised any number of things, but it's not a promise in the sense that it's a guarantee or in the sense that it's actually necessarily a goal. Like, it could just be an outright lie on the part of the developers because there's no accountability.
I mean, and that kind of goes with like Kickstarter too. Like, there are a lot of Kickstarters where it's like, hey, we're gonna if they reach this goal, like, they can make it so that if they reach the goal, they don't actually have to supply you with the end product, and they still get whatever money that they make.
We did manage to get some current data from Steam Spy, and while it's a little harder to pick out certain data points like how long was a game in early access before it moved to full release, stuff like that, there is some data that we think is pretty interesting that we can take a look at. So for example, right now there's about 2,400 games in Steam's early access.
Which is a lot.
That is a lot of games. There are some of them that are free. There's about 280 that are free. So you don't have to pay anything, which super okay with that, right? Like, if you're not going to charge me money, then that's completely reasonable. There's also a ton of them that are 99 cents.
Yeah, if you're gonna give me early access and not charge, like, I have no reason to bitch about like how long it takes you.
Then you can, vaporware as much as you want, and I will never complain because I didn't give you anything. Then there's the ones that cost money. So there's about 180-ish that are above $20 for you to play the early access, which is a lot in my personal opinion. That's subjective. Even that's fine though, right? Like, when it comes down to it, you can charge me full price for early access if you want to, and not really be upsetting unless you screw me over in the end. And here's where this number comes in. Of those over $20 games, 20 of them have been in early access since 2016.
Jesus. So
and now
out
it's
of
2018.
120?
Yeah. 20 of them have been in early access since 2016. And again, that is exactly $20 and over. That doesn't include $19.99 and under. And there's a lot of prices that are listed as NA. I don't know what that means in the grand scheme of the statistics.
Maybe it's like different levels. Like with Crowfall, like, there are
different tiers maybe, perhaps. That's
like,
what it is.
Or alpha, beta,
Sure.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem like a lot, right? Like, quantifiably, 20 out of 2,400 isn't like a staggering portion. But when you're buying the one game that does that stays in early access for forever, doesn't update for a long time, blah blah blah, it feels like it's every game. It hurts you the same as though it was every game.
Sure.
And by not emotionally hurts you. It makes you angry as though it was every game. And that's kind of the problem, right? Like, the fact that you can get away with that is the issue. That's the core of the issue. And that's the thing that we think somebody needs to take a look at.
Now, we don't think that you or I or anyone on YouTube is really going to be the person that's going to be able to solve this problem. It's going to have to come from a Steam. It's going to have to come from a gaming hub where people and this kind of goes about something we were talking about earlier. It's like, you don't see early access on consoles. They may exist, but you don't really see them very often because those companies that run both Xbox,
have a set of standards.
Yeah, they say this is the game that you release. If people are paying for it, this is what they are required to have. You know, like a finished product. And so it's like, because the PC market kind of is not a wild, wild west, but just kind of this open, expansive.
I mean, I'd call it the wild, wild west.
I mean, it's been around really long for it to still be the wild, wild west. Yeah. It's like, it's just so expansive and so open that it allows for things like early access to exist.
Yeah.
And so a company like Steam would need to be the people that go, look, yes, you can have early access. We want you to do that, but
this is the way it has to work.
Yeah, you have to come up with a standardization, whether that's updating once a month or updating every 3 months. And that would be the developer making that decision.
Yeah, just deciding, this is my schedule that I'm going to stick to. And then, okay, this is the schedule that you've submitted. If we don't receive X number of updates from you within the amount of time that you've decided is reasonable, that you, the developer, have decided is reasonable, then the customer gets a thing.
Yeah, the customer gets their money back.
Yeah, or the option to get their money
Yes.
back, or something to that effect. And there has to be leniency in there. It can't cripple a company, or again, nobody's going to do it. The barrier of entry is not going to go down, and that's the I think, one of the main benefits of early access existing. But you can't just like throw me under the bus. You know?
You can't just be like, oh, you forgot to update last month, you're gone.
Yeah.
Like,
some leeway.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
And I think we both agreed that the first company that comes up with this and like sets it in motion is going to really take a good portion of the market, like especially for that early access.
I agree
group.
with that completely. I think maybe it might be slow at the beginning. Like, for a couple titles will come into a new space and say, okay, we're early access here, so you can trust us. And then people will do it, and then they'll either have a really good experience and it'll slowly grow and grow and grow, or one group of people will have a terrible experience with a developer and then they'll get their money back, and then the popularity will just instantly explode. And everybody that wants early access will go there because that's where all the customers for early access games are going to be.
Yeah. Let us know. Head down to the comments and let us know if you think that that's a cool idea, or if you just hate the idea of early access in the first place and you wish it would go away.
It's reasonable.
While you guys are down there, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Make sure to hit the like button so that we can, get within YouTube's algorithm, and hit the bell icon because, again, YouTube sucks and doesn't understand what subscribe means.
Hey, guess what? When you subscribe to a magazine, you get a magazine every time they release a new magazine. You don't get a new magazine every 10% of the time they release a new magazine. That's how subscriptions work.
Yeah, it's really dumb. While you guys are talking about that amongst yourselves, you can go over to Twitter and talk to us about those things. You can hit me up on Twitter at IndigoQT.
And I'm at CrewQT on Twitter. You can also reach both of us at the same freaking time.
The same damn time!
At _QueueTimes. To be fair, you can also reach us both at the same time by just tagging both of our names.
True.
We've been GameGorgon. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.